Alright guys, so we are celebrating in the PSVR 2 community today because of the announcement yesterday of a permanent price drop to 399 quid. Fantastic. You know, the barrier to entry for a lot of people who want to try out VR was the price. It's expensive tech across the board, unless you're Meta, who has infinite pockets and can subsidize headsets to sell them at a loss. Aside from that, all VR headsets are expensive. That's just how it is. It's new tech, it's complicated. But this is fantastic because it's going to give a lot more people the chance or the impetus to try it out and see if they like it, and hopefully they will, and they'll stay. Because what an amazing medium, what an amazing way to play games. And of course, PSVR 2 is the most immersive VR on the market in terms of the feature set that allows you to just feel part of the games. You know, the headset rumble, the resistive triggers, the haptics, the advanced haptics, the eye tracking, the OLED, the HDR, all of these features. And it was already the cheapest way to get, the only way to get all of those features, and much cheaper than its competitors on PC at least, at the full price. So this price slash by $150, 150 quid being taken off the price is a brilliant move. But we did see some articles in the gaming press cover it, and yesterday I made a video about Upload VR's article, which, whilst giving a cursory acknowledgement of this positive news, seemed to try and make sure that most of the article was negative and included lots of sort of debunked or out of date or out of context criticisms and just negativity. And it's a common theme that we've seen in the gaming press, and it does make you wonder why that is occurring. Why there is this imbalance between reporting of the different headsets. We don't see the same crowbarring in of negativity in articles about the Quest, for example, or other PC headsets. It always seems to be PSVR 2. Whereas no matter what the good news is, a lot of these media outlets seem to really just crowbar in some negativity that is just out of context. So stuff that's already been debunked, like I said. And that was Upload VR's article yesterday by, what's his name, David Heaney, who I've had a bit of a heated exchange with on Twitter. And so I think the lady doth protest too much when I sort of took a few jabs as to why he might have wrote the article in the way that he did. But that's by the by. There is another, even more egregious example of this bizarre, unexplainable almost, bias in the media when it comes to PSVR 2. And this one is at Kotaku. Now, I don't follow Kotaku. I've never been a reader of this website, but I see on the grapevine that apparently it's not massively respected these days, and it's had some kind of decline. They put out a tweet for this article that they've written, and yeah, the numbers do sort of back up this idea that Kotaku is a spent entity that is no longer relevant or respected. Because on Twitter, Kotaku has 2.3 million followers. Now, what percentage of those followers are genuine people, I do not know. Bots and fake accounts and all the rest of it is rife on the internet, of course, we know this. But 2.3 million followers on Twitter. And Kotaku's tweet about this article supposedly has 14,000 views, but only 23 likes. 23 likes from 2.3 million followers. I mean, I get 23 likes on tweets. I've got about 300 followers. That is terrible numbers. So it doesn't speak well for Kotaku. So maybe we don't have to worry too much about this terrible article. So hopefully it won't have, too much of a negative effect in terms of wrongly influencing people away from PSVR 2 or muddying the water. But that's what it tries to do. Because, like I said, whilst this is a very positive announcement, and it's on the back of several other very positive announcements from PlayStation VR 2 recently, they just have to try and twist the story in a negative direction. And here we're going to see another example of this. And it just does make you wonder who's on the Meta payroll, and how far those things like the Horizon Creators Program or similar efforts, how far they reach. Because it just doesn't. The reason I think that it's likely, or that at least it seems like there is some other thing at play here than just being a bad journalist, right? Because it's the inconsistency. There is not this same level of negativity and, sort of efforts to really force in negative comments out of context on other articles about other headsets. We just don't see the same patterns. So that's what it's not like. I don't just suspect anybody that doesn't like the thing that I like. It's not about that. It's about recognizing patterns of behavior and recognizing the content, whether the content is relevant or holds up to scrutiny. So you have to analyze it to come to this conclusion that something's going on here. Whether it's just for clickbait, it might just be clickbait. It might not be incentivized, actually like paid for sort of negativity. It might not be that, although we do know that happens in industry. We'd be naive to think that it doesn't. That rivals companies don't, provide incentives to bias their products and criticize rivals. Of course that occurs in all industries. Anyway, if it's not that, if it's just clickbait, then it's worked, because here I am responding. But this is Kotaku's article. Sony finally slashes the price of PlayStation VR 2 by $150, but it might be too late. Finally. Now I'm going to go into I'm going to go in detail deconstructing this piece of shit article, right? Finally slashes the price. This thing's already been out 2 years. That's pretty standard time frame for reducing the price of a new consumer electronics product, right? If a new TV comes out, not many people are going to expect that to be discounted heavily in the first year. It's going to be at the price that it comes out at for at least a year. You might get a little sale in Black Friday or whatever, but to permanently reduce the price of a major consumer electronics product, to do that 2 years after it came out, is pretty standard. If not soon, if it's not actually soon, it's quite early to do that, especially given the fact that inflation is going crazy recently. And of course that's affecting us badly as well. It's a whole different conversation. But to reduce the price of this product by $150 2 years later after it came out is about standard. So to say finally, like, it was already priced as the cheapest OLED VR headset on the market before you even mention all of the features that it has that its rival OLED headsets don't have. So it is already fantastic value for money compared to its competitors. And that is the metric by which you would expect gaming media to judge it on. Not as if there was some newcomer who's never heard of VR before and is put off by the high prices of these products. If you're writing your articles for the gaming audience, for the people that are already sort of aware of, looking into, interested in these things, it's not surprising. And it was already a fantastic price for it, but it is good to see it come down. Yes. All right, it is good. Sony finally slashes the price of PlayStation VR 2 by $150, but it might be too late. Might be, first of all, is that it? So you've done a speculation based on nothing. Well, we'll see what they base it on in the article. Is that worthy to be in the title there? Is that a central part of the story here today? we'll see. We'll see what they base that on. It's probably just clickbait title, but it doesn't get better though. But we'll carry on. The virtual reality headset reviewed well, but launched at $550. Yeah, again, the cheapest OLED VR headset on the market by several $100s when it came out. Anyway, PSVR 2 launched at $550 2 years ago this month. It was a great virtual reality headset, but at an intimidating price. Now, intimidating for people that are new to VR, that aren't aware of the average price of these products, perhaps. And all of these headsets are only thought of as expensive now in the context of the highly subsidized Quest headsets that are being sold at a loss, because Meta are able to do that. They have infinite money effectively. So it's only with that context that all other VR headsets appear to be expensive, really, because relative to each other, relative to its nearest competitor, PSVR 2 was already, as I said, a steal, and it is now even obviously more value for money. Now Sony is dropping it to $400 starting in March amid reports that sales have completely stalled. Amid reports that sales have completely stalled. People in this community will remember quite recently, very, very recently, there was a huge sale on in which the PSVR 2 was reduced to $350 for a limited time. And in that time, in that sale, sales of PSVR 2 spiked by 30 times, by a factor of 30. And that was just on Amazon, God knows where else. The sales exploded. The demand for this headset exploded, or rather, the demand was always there. It was just a case of a lot of people finding that barrier to entry being the perceptually high asking price as, too much to take a risk on. It's unfamiliar tech for most people, so that's why it's intimidating. They don't know if they're going to like it before they have a go in it, really. So, and unfortunately, they're not doing many sort of out in the wild demos of PSVR 2 on this generation. That is a problem. But Kotaku is dropping it to 400 amid reports from who reported that sales have completely stalled. They didn't. It's the absolute opposite. The demand was clearly there. As soon as that price went down to 350, sales went up a factor of 30. So it's just out and out lie. Utter bullshit. It goes on. Can the discount give PSVR 2 a second wind, or is it just one last attempt to sell off inventory before the pricey PS5 boondoggle is completely retired? Boondoggle? What the fuck is a boondoggle? We're gonna Google this. I don't even know what that's fucking supposed to mean. Definition: boondoggle. An unnecessary, wasteful, or fraudulent project. An unnecessary, wasteful, or fraudulent project. Kotaku, are you getting a bung from Meta? This is so egregious. This is so wrong. This is such a hit piece that it can't just be based on ignorance. It can't just be based on your lack of knowledge of what's available and how quality the experience is on PSVR 2. You can't just be that you're ignorant of it. To use words like that. To call it a fraudulent or wasteful product. It beggars belief. This is why I'm convinced that there is some foul play going on in the gaming media, and it's not just that they don't know, that they're uninformed. It's so egregious that it looks like it must be incentivized intentional negativity. I don't have proof of that, other than what's been said about the kind of agreements that Meta likes to sign people up to, and what could be associated in terms of not just being positive about their products, but also by extension being negative about competitors. I believe that's going on, and it's articles like this that makes me think that Meta is paying people to shit on PlayStation VR 2, because that's beyond the pale, isn't it? A boondoggle, an unnecessary, wasteful or fraudulent project. Unnecessary by what metric? Wasteful in what do you mean wasteful? There's hundreds of thousands, millions of people now actually that are having amazing fun with PSVR 2, and it has a very high attachment rate, retention rate. A lot of developers are saying that they're selling more copies of their games on PSVR 2 than on Quest, despite the fact that it's got a much smaller install base. So that speaks to the enthusiasm with which its user base has for the system, that they are buying a lot of games. They love it, they love spending time with it, they're enjoying it. So, wow. So you could not be more wrong, Kotaku, whoever the fuck this is, Ethan Gash, whatever. It continues. For those of you who have been waiting for the opportunity to jump into PlayStation VR 2 and experience what this generation's innovative virtual reality system has to offer, we are happy to share some great news. Starting in March, we're reducing the recommended price. So this is just quoting Sony. Released back in 2023 in bunch with Call of the Mountain for $600, PSVR 2 was praised for its build quality, comfort and performance. The price, however, effectively told non-enthusiasts to stay away. Non-enthusiasts. So, yes, there are several barriers to entry for VR. It's a problem. You can't really sell it to people unless you get them in the headset to show them just how awesome the experience is. If you just try and enthuse about it in videos or adverts or online, it's not really going to do the trick. And so, because of that difficulty to really prove to people how good it is and that they may enjoy it, then the lower the price is to try out that new experience, the better for a consumer that's unfamiliar with this tech, of course. So, of course, standalone is going to be far and away the choice for people who aren't yet convinced that they even like VR in the first place. And that's not going to be changed whether PSVR 2 is $400 at launch or $600, because you also have to have a PS5, of course. So there's an extra $550 purchase needed just to be able to have the system that PSVR 2 runs on. So that is much more of a significant investment when someone's trying to choose, I don't know about VR, what can I do? I'm going to spend $800 or $1,000 on a PSVR 2 and PS5, or $200 on a Quest 2. No brainer for those that are, again, unsure of this tech and trying to figure out if they like it. So that wouldn't have made, I don't believe that would have made a huge difference to have that low price, to sell it at a loss at launch. And Sony, again, are not Meta. They don't have Meta money. They don't have infinite pockets like Meta does. So it would have been very difficult for them to justify, for the creatives that have the passion to develop for and maintain PSVR 2, to justify the investment by the people that really make the decisions at Sony in terms of finance. They need to make it sustainable. They couldn't have just said, right, let's sell it at a loss from day one, regardless of all of the factors that we can't control, and see what happens. So they've been playing it safe in some regards, but that is no doubt, I believe, to make it sustainable. Because if they just threw their wad at the wall in the first year, made a huge loss, would have been potentially more difficult to justify sustaining its support, But the The price, however, effectively told non-enthusiasts to stay away. Well, it does have the difficulty of being a tethered device. So for non-enthusiasts, they're going to go for standalone anyway because it's not tethered. It's a simpler way into VR. It's much cheaper, even if PSVR 2 came out at a lower price, because there's no extra console needed. But for those who are already interested in VR and are looking for the next level, for looking for next gen, current gen graphics, for example, high fidelity VR experiences, it's the cheapest way to get that by several $100s. Actually, maybe a couple of $1,000s, really. Because the nearest sort of comparison you could really have is a different OLED headset and a PC capable of running graphics at the high quality that PSVR 2 can, enabled by its eye tracking, to get the best performance out of the PS5. So to get equivalent performance on PC, you're spending probably around $2,000–3,000. But that's for enthusiasts. So perhaps, you know, that's where they've sort of they've tried to place themselves in the middle there. It's the affordable enthusiasts, or the affordable high-end VR option. But it's not going to compete with standalone for non-enthusiasts. It just can't do that realistically. So it's kind of pointless comparison, really. But here we go, it's going to compare it anyway. The article continues. And unlike Meta's cheaper Oculus headset, PSVR 2 also requires a standalone PS5, whatever that means, to work, and wasn't backwards compatible with the original PSVR's library of games. Again, this is trotting out a criticism from 2 years ago from launch. It was an issue at launch. Yeah, we were talking about this issue of backwards compatibility. For the untrained eye, that looks like a big faux pas. But actually, because of the severe differences between the two headsets, we don't know if that would even have been actionable, because you didn't even have thumbsticks on PSVR 1's controllers. Yes, maybe the difference in tracking would have been easier to resolve on the firmware end, I don't know, but I can certainly guess that the control methods, the difference between digital input with buttons for direction and analog sticks, is too big of a difference to just say, there you go, put them on PSVR 2 and see what happens. It no doubt would have required a patch from the developers to go into their games to change those control inputs. But anyway, that's an issue that was raised 2 years ago at launch and is not really relevant anymore, because you now have nearly 300 games available on PSVR 2 and an absolutely huge library of quality stuff. So it's just bringing up old critiques that, do we really need to recycle those from 2 years ago? They're not relevant anymore. Yeah, unlike Meta's cheaper Oculus headset, well, it's actually called the Quest. Oculus, is it called the Oculus anymore? I don't think so. But yes, it's cheaper because it's subsidized by Meta, who have all the money in the world and are selling it at a loss. And in fact, the whole Meta Reality Labs division is, I think, operating at something like 40 billion in the red? So they've sunk something like 40 billion into VR in the hope that they'll be able to recoup that in future generations down the line. But as it stands, they have made a multi-billion-dollar deficit in their investment. Other companies just simply cannot afford to do that. So what you want and what is possible are often two very different things. And if you're analysing the economics of situations like this, what use is there in basing your analysis on just what you want or you think should happen, right? No, let's base it in reality. Let's base it in what is possible. But that's obviously the reason that standalone would have been preferred by the non-enthusiasts anyway, because you have to have the PS5 to run PSVR 2. Anyway, it goes on. There were immediate reports of Sony struggling to meet sales goals for the device, with Sony even halting production early last year due to a build-up in stock of unwanted units, according to Bloomberg. According to Bloomberg, that story was bullshit. All electronic products have pauses in their production runs. Otherwise, you would have countless warehouses around the world full of redundant items. Okay? No consumer electronics product sells indefinitely at a scalable rate. Right? Nothing does. Everything has to be, production of any consumer electronics product has to be paused at some point to allow what you have made to sell. There's no point in keeping warehouses full of products if your demand and your supply has started to level out. A nonsense story that means nothing. It is not notable, it is not weird, it is not unusual for a product to have a pause in its production. So, but again, this new piece of news about the price reduction, you have these articles bring up old recycled critiques that are debunked as well, false, invalid, but just old stuff. Why does that need to be repeated again? Not that it's true in the first place. It's one of the things that makes me smell a rat. There are immediately supports of Sony struggling to meet sales goals for the device. Actually, it sold really well in the first few months. The enthusiasts, the people that were waiting for it, really snapped it up quickly. It sold really well. Obviously, it dipped again here and there, but the demand is clearly there. So again, recently the sale that was on, where the sales of it raised by 30 times as much as it was selling before the sale, shows that the demand is there. So that is recent news about the demand of this product that completely invalidates this statement about alleged lack of demand a year ago. So just such a bad article. It goes on. Despite a small but steady stream of new releases for the headset, we're drowning in games actually. There's been a lot of new releases. The backlog is real. As well as adapters to make the headset work with PCs, its fortunes don't seem to have meaningfully improved. Last summer, the device was briefly on sale for $200 off. Its fortunes don't seem to have meaningfully improved, again, apart from sales going through the roof when there was a sale on. The bigger question is why Sony waited this long to aggressively cut the price in the first place. They've done it in a pretty standard time frame for all consumer electronic products to have a price cut a couple of years after it's out. It's not unusual. Maybe it's only recently that the manufacturing costs came down enough to make that viable, perhaps. After all, why would Sony want to lose money on headsets for an ecosystem that's barely growing? It is growing. Relative to other headsets, it's the fastest growing recently. So yeah, the whole of VR is a slow burn medium that is growing slowly because of these inherent barriers to entry, in that you can't really sell someone on it until they've had a go themselves, and that's not always easy to facilitate. So it's inherently a slow burn medium. I don't think it's going to be ever something that just explodes overnight. One game that will do it. Or, it's as people have tried it themselves and then come around to it. But relative to other headsets, it is actually the fastest growing right now. Because of that recent sale, and this is reflected in the sales of multi-plat games, where more copies are getting sold on PSVR 2 than on Quest, according to the developers themselves. So again, wrong. And people might wonder, why does he care so much? Why has he ranted for 30 minutes already on this article? Why does he care so much? Is he some kind of fanboy? Oh, it must be a fanboy. That's what it is. I don't like skullduggery. I have a radar for bullshit, and it's stuff like this that sort of triggers it. So, you know, you can like what you like. You don't have to like the same thing as I do. That would be ridiculous of me to think that way. But when there are falsifiable claims made, irrelevant, out of date, out of context, debunked criticisms, you have to wonder then why. Why is this article structured like that, with all of this false information and speculative negativity? It's interesting to speculate on why that would be happening. At the same time, games sell consoles, and without the clear backing of Sony, the PSVR 2 library never took off. Apart from, again, selling more copies on PSVR 2 than on Quest. Go and speak to the developers of Max Mustard, of various other games that have made this same claim. They sell more on PSVR 2. Without the clear backing of Sony. So without the clear backing of Sony, again, Sony, who are now 2 generations deep into VR with industry leading, future-proofed features on their headset that isn't available anywhere else, that they funded several major projects, third party, second party, first party. They've put money into many games. Some we know about, like Legendary Tales, Song in the Smoke, and many others we probably don't even know about. I would guess that any game that's been featured on State of Play might have some Sony money behind it, but we certainly know about a few of them. So they are certainly investing in the software side of things as well as the hardware. Of course, they recently brought hand tracking to PSVR 2, which is a new addition to its functionality, which we didn't think we was going to get. So that's another positive, not mentioned in this article. At the same time, games sell consoles, and we've got the best game library, I would say, out in VR, outside of mods. That's a different conversation. How can others place big bets on the hardware if the company that made it doesn't seem willing to do the same? Does this sound neutral? Does this sound like just a neutral games reporter? Or does it sound like someone who works for Meta? It's quite staggering in its bitter, petty negativity. These questions, these accusations, these assumptions aren't based in reality. There's nothing to actually back up that assessment of things being so bad. So you have this fantastic positive announcement, and the entire article is just slating PSVR 2 and trying to put you off taking the plunge. It's a hit piece. And that's fascinating to me. At the same time, games sell consoles, and like Gran Turismo 7, like Call of the Mountain, like Resident Evil 4 and 8, like No Man's Sky, and a whole host of other games that don't have the recognition of flat screen but are very popular in VR. You know, we have generationally better versions of the multi-plat games like Saints and Sinners 2. You compare Saints and Sinners 2 on PSVR 2 to Quest, it's like looking at PS5 and N64. They're so much better on PSVR 2. So if you want the most immersive, the most impressive VR at an affordable price, this is where you need to come. There's nowhere else that you can do it. So it's just utter bullshit. How can others place big bets on the hardware if the company that made it doesn't seem willing to do the same? What is that? It's just nonsense. That doesn't mean here are no games. That doesn't mean there are no games for PSVR 2. Sony notes in today's blog that Aliens, Behemoth, Metro all arrived on the platform recently. You've got Hitman World of Assassination coming. For now though, there still doesn't seem to be a killer app coming down the road anytime soon. Apart from the one you just mentioned. Hitman World of Assassination, that's 3 AAA games in one. Hitman, massively popular title, is a killer app for a lot of people. Depends what you're into. But it's just exhausting, this relentless negativity. And, I'm sorry, I'm sure this is redundant. Maybe 2 people will watch this and go, yes, that was a necessary video, but I have vented, okay? It's like therapy, okay? Making these videos, it's like therapy. Because all we are is just gamers who want to have fun and want others to know what is available to them and to see if they like it as well. And it's articles like this that are going to put people off even trying to find out for themselves. Because if the only narrative that they see as a cursory, someone who's just having a cursory investigation of VR, like on the fringes of thinking about trying it, and then you see an article like this, and they're like, oh, it's gone down in price. Oh, it doesn't sound worth it. Oh, really? Won't bother. And that's what this article is trying to make people think. And all of it is utter bullshit. Kotaku. You've got to be on the payroll. If you're not on the payroll, it's even more confusing as to why you would write an article this bad and this wrong, like objectively, like provably wrong. It's not subjective. The stuff that you have said, the claims you have made, the criticisms you have levied at PSVR 2 are debunked. They are not true. They're not valid, and many of them are out of date and out of context. That's it. I'm sorry, guys. I'll take a break from the ranty videos from now. Okay, gonna zen it out and just enjoy PSVR 2 and not listen to the haters now that I've exorcised this demon. Okay, thanks. Namaste. Enjoy your gaming.